until after about 80 or 90 transactions, the $50 has gone as an entity and sits 100% with the credit card provider on the other side in their fees. Death by 1,000 cuts. There are two things that your pastor and your business coach haven't told you about money. Your pastor hasn't told you that the system you've been led to believe is true actually cannot be trusted. The system that we've been conditioned to believe will help us create prosperity or create wealth actually creates a system where everything that we create actually is for the benefit of the system itself. And the church, which almost has more money than any other system, has been completely silent about this for centuries. Your business coach hasn't stopped to tell you that the way you're building your business and structuring your pricing, building your products, serving your customers, the advice and guidance that you're following, the courses that you're going on, and the learning that you're having, all comes from the Roman Empire, which John in Revelation refers to as Babylon. And Babylon imploded, self-destructed, where everything was gone in just 1 hour. I haven't lived in the UK now for almost 25 years. I've floated around the world, lived in different places, different cities, different regions, and it's given me a unique perspective of the world because I don't have an attachment of any one place being home. I don't have any pride, any ego, and almost any history attached to any one place. And what it's allowed me to do is to soar like an eagle in the sky and look down and observe and see what everybody else's biases miss, to see clarity of how things actually are working. You know, in 2000, a dollar was worth something, and now that same dollar in 2026 is worth about 50 cents. Have you ever thought about when you spend your dollar and tap your card, how that dollar becomes worth less and less and less in the economy over a period of time? You know, if you took $50 and you tapped your card and gave it to a vendor, well, the vendor doesn't get the $50. They get $49.20 or whatever it is after the transaction fees. They then take their $49.20 or whatever the amount is, and they then go and buy something for $49.20. And the next supplier doesn't have $49.20. They end up with $48.80 because the transaction fee comes off the top. And so what I want you to understand in economic terms is that your money becomes worth less and less and less with every transaction that you make, because the whole Babylonian economics is designed to make you poorer and poorer and poorer without you realizing it, to feed the system itself through unseen taxes and unseen commissions. Commissions or taxes or fees or whatever the structuring is called, that is actually the process of death by 1,000 cuts. It's actually a process that guarantees that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Have you ever stopped to think about Visa as an entity and how much money it is that they will make? How many Visa transactions go through your business every day? How many PayPal, Stripe, or just how many bank transactions go through your business every day? And what is the small fee that the bank takes or Visa takes? And have you ever thought about the accumulative effect of all of those fees coming together and what that's worth to the bank or Stripe or PayPal or Visa on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? You see, Babylon was built to ensure the Emperor of Rome was sustained for thousands of years. Ultimately, that caused its collapse. The only way to win is actually to own the system, not be the transactor with the product. The 2008 financial collapse was never ever resolved. It was just postponed. The UK bought a huge amount of mortgage debt from the United States. Trillions were dumped into a banking system. Money was printed at a rate faster than it's ever been printed in human history, based on nothing other than a promise. The volume of dollars in circulation today is double what it was just a few decades ago. But what's backed it? Nothing. Gold got taken out of a link to the dollar almost a century ago now. So what's actually backing this money that's being printed? The promise of men. But ultimately, that promise of men can only be lived and held and honoured if one economy chooses to thrive over the lack of success of another economy. It's truly where the stronger economy has to become the thief who takes from the sleeping party. And that's where we are today. And I want us to refer to two Bible verses. The first one is Chronicles 12:32. From Issachar, who men understood the times with knowledge of what Israel ought to do. You see, you can't have a plan and a strategy unless you actually take on the truth of where you are today and build for where that truth will ultimately take you to. In Proverbs 22:7, Solomon writes, "The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender." The Holy Spirit did not choose the word inconvenience. He chose the word slave. Have we become a slave to the credit card itself? Or have we become a slave to our bank? Are we actually fast-tracking the downfall of Rome, the downfall of the Babylon of today? Because as believers, we're not building kingdom systems for economic exchange that actually provide honor, freedom, and prosperity properly for Christians. And are we just trapping ourselves in more and more Babylonian systems that force us to be more anxious, more greedy, and more focused on money, almost like it's an obsession every single day? The first is we're taught to have economic faith without being taught economic strategy based upon the truth of today and the economic reality of tomorrow. The church says give and trust God. All is true, all is biblical, but we're never taught how to read a balance sheet. Moses himself was one of the meekest people who ever lived, and yet he managed the economic organization of 2 million people and prospered off the back of it. Solomon built Israel off the back of David, but Solomon himself was gifted $1.9 billion today in gold alone, in today's money, by the kings and queens of Arabia, and is arguably the richest person who ever lived. Stewardship is the parable of the 10 minas. Stewardship is the requirement for you to actively magnify the wealth of the kingdom. Not just by a few percent, but by 2 times, 5 times, and 10 times what it is that we've been given. The third struggle that the church has in teaching us is that they've mistaken Babylon's economic system for just everyday life. Families that carry huge amounts of consumer debt, home loans, vehicles, student loans, medical debt, families that are sometimes more indebted than the combined family yearly income. And so if you're a Christian business owner and you're over leveraged on your balance sheet, you can't make profit while you are in debt. All you're actually doing is decreasing the amount of debt that you have. Therefore, what are you actually doing? You see, the profitability of your business is everything that's left above the zero. And so if your business made $500,000 net profit last year, but you owe $1 million, your business as a whole is still $500,000 behind. You're climbing out of a hole. Therefore, you're still trapped in a Babylonian system, looking for God's favor with regards to his economic system, celebrating the profit when really we should be celebrating, look, I've taken half a step out of the Babylonian system. You see, we're confusing motion and progress. We're asking God for his favor, his support, his guidance, and then turning our head away from him and saying, well, I've done this bit, and now I'm going to go back to doing that bit over there, the Babylonian way that the rest of the world does, in the belief that that's the only option. We've built KingdomPreneur with zero debt, simply by taking the profits and diligently magnifying them and placing them back inside of the business over and over and over again. You'd say, well, that must take time. And yet the business of KingdomPreneur started in South Africa and in its first year served 30,000 believers. In its second year, we've expanded into Texas in the United States and soon into Florida, all without debt, all without being a slave to the lender, without an external investor. Notice what God did not do. He did not remove his people from Egypt before the plagues. He distinguished them within Egypt. Same geography, same system, same pressure, different outcome. Daniel himself traded exceptionally successfully within the Babylonian system, applying the principles of Goshen. He didn't have to trade away. He actually became the Robin Hood of his time, taking from the rich to bring to the poor, taking from Babylon to bring into the kingdom. And you can do the same. I want us to talk about Joseph. Joseph didn't merely survive a famine, he governed during it. In Genesis 41, it's written, "Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plentiful years. And let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine." 20% before the crisis. We know that Babylon will collapse. That isn't a maybe or an if or a but. It is simply a when. That's not me being a doomsday prophet or encouraging you to be a doomsday prepper, but it is me asking you, how is your business economically trading today to take out of Babylon, to bring into Goshen, and to secure that money for the survivability of Goshen when Babylon collapses? How are you investing that money? How are you 2xing it, 5xing it, and 10xing it? How are you placing it in places where it is able for you to draw on when Babylon does collapse? What system of trade or system of processes are you building so that when MasterCard collapses, you can trade? How are we as believers building a kingdom economic trading structure that outlives and outsurvives Visa? You see, this is the opportunity of the believer, is to create something more wholesome than's currently there and have it ready to deploy the moment what currently there is no longer there. Now, we think, by the way, that this thing doesn't happen in our lifetime. And yet, the truth is, Lehman Brothers, a massive financial firm, collapsed overnight, crushing retirement funds of hundreds of thousands of people, evaporated and gone. That happened within my lifetime, just a couple of decades ago. Banks have collapsed. You see, this does happen, and we as believers need to prepare for it. It's how we actually steward the kingdom of God. And so there are 6 kingdom economic moves that you can make in order for you to step your business forwards. The first is to break the debt chain at business level, to ensure that you're no longer a slave to the lender. That means we need to build a committed plan to eliminate debt in our business within a set time frame. That means we've got to stop putting our hand in the cookie jar because we want the extra vacation, the new beach home, the faster car, the whatever it may well be, for a short period of time, to dig ourselves out of the debt that we're in with the lender. Ultimately, what call is it you wish to have from the bank one day? Do you wish to have a bank call you for advice? Or do you wish to have a bank to call you to lend you more? Or do you have a bank calling you to say, you're behind, you're struggling? Can we bail you out of debt with more debt at X rate interest, which really traps you even further? A kingdom business is only a kingdom business when it has the freedom to respond to God without the consent of the bank. That's when a kingdom business becomes a kingdom business. When it can follow the Holy Spirit without a concern of the credit card balance. That's a kingdom business. The next is, how can you make yourself a Joseph reserve? Take 20% of your profit every year and set it aside before you allocate it to anything else. Not 10, but 20%. Joseph's instruction was 1/5. Put it into assets that hold value, such as property, precious metal, index positions, or equity stake in other real businesses that are kingdom-based and growing, playing the same game as you. Not putting it in a savings account that's going to go backwards based upon the rate of inflation, but in something that actually will outgrow inflation. Ideally, doing 2x, 5x, or 10x. The reserve is not necessarily a safety net. It's a war chest that allows you to go to war when Babylon collapses and all about you is panicking. It allows you to capture more of the Babylonian structure and bring it into your Goshen when Babylon collapses. The rich who get richer have always bought from people who become poor at economic slumps. The rich spend more in a downturn of the economy than they do in the upturn of the economy. The poor spend more when everything's thriving and sell what they have when the economy struggles to the rich. So how do you build your war chest to go to war for the kingdom when the economy slumps? Next is to build multiple layers of income stream within one entity that serves the same customer group. So this isn't having crypto over here, a property portfolio here, 5 businesses. This is one business, one focus, serving the same client group at multiple levels. That is where you can take your client group from driving a small car to a Rolls Royce through 6 car transactions, where also you've got your client group paying you for multiple things over multiple time periods. Cleaning, servicing if you're into vehicles. Diversification isn't what we think it is. We think diversification is going wider, but diversification is actually going deeper on a narrow path within one thing, diversifying on the way down the path. Solomon didn't go and diversify by conquering other countries. Solomon passed God's wisdom through him to other countries for the prosperity of Israel. Israel remained the thing that he went deeper and deeper in, and he avoided all of the shiny objects out there that weren't his area of expertise and speciality. He stayed focused. The next move you as a kingdom business owner should make is to price like you're a prince who represents the king. In Leviticus 19:36, it's written, "You shall have just balances, just weights, just ephah, and a just hin. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." Most Christian business owners underprice, not out of generosity, but out of fear. They give away large chunks of the supply chain because they believe that's the way the industry works. But actually giving away that part of the supply chain is just laziness. It's an unwillingness to really do the work that matters. Agriculture is a prime example of that, where the farmer is consistently getting poorer and poorer and poorer because they've given away the supply chain between themselves and the customer. In that gap, everybody's taking their 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, and ultimately the farmer net doesn't get to go and talk about how much they want to sell their product for or how much they need to sell it for. They're dictated to by the supply chain. That isn't kingdom economics or being focused or being humble. That is back to being a slave to the Babylonian lender, working in a Babylonian economy in a Babylonian way. Underpricing is Babylon poverty masked as kingdom language. I'd encourage you to think that if you were to price as a prince to the King of Kings, your price point should be the highest in the marketplace, giving the highest quality and the highest quantity for the highest price. Your fear, however, says, oh, well, people won't pay that. They won't pay that because your quality is not good enough yet. You're not offering the best of the best. And the reality is, they're going to tell you you're too expensive regardless of what it is you want to charge them. And so if you're going to get the same feedback anyway, you may as well just go and be the most expensive. The last thing, the fifth thing, is to know your numbers the way that Solomon himself commanded you to. In Proverbs 27, it's written, know well the condition of your flocks and give attention to your herds, for riches do not last forever. Your business financials are your flocks. Ignorance of them is not permitted by Solomon. Ignorance of them is a lack of applying the wisdom that you've been given. And so if you're a Christian business owner, can you read your own profit and loss statements? Can you state what your gross and net profit margin is per product line? Can you show a cash flow forecast and understand it? Can you build a balance sheet? Can you budget? And when you can do all of those things, can you commit to accurately sticking to them, as opposed to them becoming an Excel spreadsheet of best intentions? The last move you as a Christian business owner should look to make to play into God's economy is to build towards owning system-based assets, not just generating income. System-based assets are things that you can deploy into Babylon to be like a Visa, to take that money and bring it back into Goshen. That adds to your Joseph 20%. And so a system-based asset is something that Babylon needs in order to trade. It glues consumer and business together, or business and business together, and takes from the middle. You effectively become, as I mentioned earlier, a Robin Hood, taking from Babylon, bringing to Goshen to support the kingdom. In doing so, you don't hoard wealth, you secure wealth for the kingdom. This ultimately ensures that you do what Solomon again told us to do, which is to leave an inheritance for our children's children. And for that, you require ever-increasing asset that is system-based, that keeps on producing for you. What I've shared with you today is not the prosperity gospel. It is stewardship theology, accurately given and consistently applied into the world that you live today. You cannot expect to have God's backing and blessing if you wish to go and do business in the way that the world goes and does business. However, if you do it in the way that he wishes you to do business, in his economy, he will go and build the fence of Goshen around your business and protect it from the plagues. But that involves you applying what I've said in this business and fully committing yourself to learning and understanding what his economy actually looks like. God bless.